Have you ever wondered how the concept of self-care has evolved over the years, especially among millennials? Self-care. It's a term that's been tossed around a lot lately, but what does it really mean? Well, at its core, self-care is about taking care of one's own physical and mental health. It's about recognizing our own needs and taking steps to meet them. It's about treating ourselves with the same kindness and respect we'd give to others. Now, if we take a look at the history of self-care, we'd see that it was often associated with the idea of luxury. It was seen as indulgent, something reserved for the privileged few who had the time and money to pamper themselves. But over the years, this perception has gradually shifted. Today, self-care is no longer viewed as a luxury, but rather a necessity. It's now seen as essential to our overall well-being. This shift in perception can be attributed in part to the changing societal attitudes towards mental health. As we've become more aware of the importance of mental health, we've also become more accepting of the idea that taking care of ourselves is not just about physical health, but mental and emotional health as well. This brings us to millennials, a generation that's been at the forefront of this shift in the perception of self-care. Millennials, more than any other generation, have embraced the idea of self-care as a necessity. They view it not as an indulgence, but as a fundamental part of their lifestyle. For millennials, self-care can take many forms. It can be as simple as taking a mental health day off work, or as complex as a comprehensive wellness routine that includes exercise, healthy eating, meditation, and more. It's about making conscious choices that contribute to their overall well-being. But why this shift? Why do millennials prioritize self-care more than previous generations? Well, it could be due to a number of factors, including increased awareness of mental health issues, the pressures of modern life, and the desire for a balanced life. So as we see, self-care is not a new concept, but the way millennials approach it is quite unique. Now, let's delve into the unique self-care habits of millennials. What makes them different? Millennials are often seen as the self-care generation, and there's a good reason for that. They've taken the concept of self-care and expanded it, making it a part of their everyday lives. This generation is not just focused on the physical aspects of self-care, they also put a lot of emphasis on mental health. They recognize that taking care of their mind is just as important as taking care of their bodies. This includes practices like meditation, mindfulness, therapy, and even digital detoxes. They understand the importance of unplugging from the digital world to reduce stress and improve mental well-being. Speaking of digital, it's worth noting that millennials are also the first generation that grew up with the internet and smartphones. This has significantly influenced their approach to self-care. They use technology to track their fitness goals, find healthy recipes, meditate, and manage their mental health. There are countless apps and online platforms out there designed to support this generation's self-care needs. Fitness and diet are another big part of millennials' self-care habits. They know that to feel good, they need to fuel their bodies with the right nutrients and stay active. They're not afraid to try new diets and workout routines, always searching for what works best for their bodies. They're also the generation that made athleisure a trend, further blurring the lines between fitness and everyday life. And let's not forget about their focus on personal growth and development. Millennials are always looking for ways to improve themselves, whether it's through reading self-help books, attending workshops, or taking online courses. This continuous learning and growth mindset is definitely a unique aspect of their approach to self-care. Clearly, millennials have a comprehensive and tech-savvy approach to self-care. But how does this compare with older generations? Before the age of smartphones and wellness apps, how did previous generations practice self-care? It's fascinating to take a step back in time and examine how our parents, grandparents, and even great-grandparents approached this important aspect of life. Their self-care habits were typically centered around physical health. Back in those days, the concept of wellness was often equated with physical fitness and vitality. People would engage in regular physical activities not necessarily confined to gym workouts, but more practical forms of exercise, like walking to work, doing household chores, or tending to gardens. They were more physically active in their daily lives, and this natural movement contributed significantly to their overall health. Traditional wellness practices were also an integral part of their self-care routine. Home remedies passed down from generation to generation were used to treat common ailments. These could include everything from a spoonful of honey for a sore throat to a warm milk for a good night's sleep. There was an inherent trust in nature and its healing power, which formed the basis of their health care. However, one area where previous generations perhaps did not focus as much was mental health. The understanding and acceptance of mental health issues were not as widespread as they are today. It's not that they didn't experience stress, anxiety, or depression. These are universal human experiences. But the language to express these feelings and the resources to manage them were often lacking. The concept of mental health as a critical component of self-care was largely unrecognized. The cultural norms and societal expectations of the time also played a role. There was a certain stoicism expected, a grin and bear it mentality, which discouraged people from acknowledging their mental struggles. Seeking help for mental health issues was often stigmatized, and many suffered in silence. As we see, self-care in previous generations was quite different from what we see today, but what can we learn from this? The past gives us a perspective, a chance to appreciate the strides we've made in understanding self-care, and also an opportunity to rediscover and incorporate some of those time-tested wellness practices into our own lives. While millennials have their unique approach to self-care, there are valuable lessons to be learned from previous generations. Let's rewind the clock and delve into the self-care habits of those who came before us. You see, previous generations had a simpler yet profound understanding of self-care. The essence of their practices was predicated on balance and simplicity. They didn't have the luxury of digital detoxes because, well, they lived in an era devoid of the digital overload we experience today. Balance was an integral part of their self-care routine. They understood the importance of a balanced diet, adequate sleep, and regular physical activity. And while we, millennials, are also aware of these principles, we often find ourselves struggling to maintain this balance amidst our bustling lives. Perhaps one of the most valuable lessons we can learn from previous generations is the ability to disconnect. This doesn't necessarily mean going off-grid or abandoning technology altogether. It's about taking the time to step away from our screens and reconnect with ourselves and our surroundings. It's about rekindling the joy of reading a physical book, taking a leisurely walk in the park, or simply enjoying a quiet moment of solitude. In addition to balance and disconnection, previous generations also emphasized simple wellness practices. They valued the power of home-cooked meals, the therapeutic benefits of a good laugh, the restorative power of nature, and the importance of meaningful social interactions. These simple practices, often overlooked in our quest for elaborate self-care routines, can have a profound impact on our overall well-being. As we continue to navigate our self-care journey, let's take a moment to appreciate these lessons from the past. Let's strive for balance, cherish moments of disconnection, and embrace simple wellness practices. Let's remember that at its core, self-care is about nurturing our physical, emotional, and mental well-being. So while self-care has evolved, there are timeless principles that remain relevant. As we look towards the future, how might self-care continue to evolve? The future of self-care is a fascinating and ever-evolving landscape. As we've seen in the previous scenes, self-care is not a static concept. It has evolved over time, and it will continue to change as society and technology evolve. One of the most promising areas for the future of self-care is technology. Advances in technology are already making it easier for us to take care of ourselves in more effective and efficient ways. Wearable devices that track our sleep, heart rate, and activity levels, for instance, are becoming more and more commonplace. These devices can provide invaluable information about our physical health and help us make informed decisions about our daily habits. In the future, we might see even more sophisticated tools that can help us monitor and improve our health. Another significant aspect of the future of self-care is the increased focus on mental health. As society becomes more aware of the importance of mental health, we're seeing a shift in the way we approach self-care. It's no longer just about taking care of our physical bodies. It's about taking care of our minds as well. This shift is leading to a greater emphasis on practices like mindfulness, meditation, and therapy. These practices can help us manage stress, improve our mental resilience, and maintain our overall well-being. However, as we move forward, it's important to remember the need for balance. While technology and new practices can enhance our self-care routines, they shouldn't replace the basics. Eating a balanced diet, getting regular exercise, ensuring we get enough sleep, and taking time to relax and unwind are all vital components of self-care. Technology and new practices should complement these basics, not replace them. Whatever the future holds, one thing is clear. self-care will continue to be a vital part of our lives.